begin with a mantra. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Ma Vidvishavahe Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste to everyone and welcome to a live broadcast. I'm here with Ihtisham Ghulam. A quick translation of the mantra that I just recited. May we be protected. May we be nourished. May we work together with positive energy. May our study be vigorous and effective, and let there be no animosity between us. Let there be no animosity between us. Let there be no animosity between us. Peace, peace, peace. Sham, thank you for joining me. Ihtisham Ghulam and I actually go back. I visited Michigan a couple of times, and I got to spend some time with him. I got to meet your family, so I have a lot of respect for you, and I cherish those memories. May God bless you for hosting me and showing me around Michigan when I was there. And I appreciate you and welcome to my channel. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. And so Ihtisham, if you wanna briefly just introduce yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get into the conversation.
Okay, hello, thanks Farhan for having me. And I met Farhan years ago, and as the years went on, and we did debates together. I remember that, or we were part of the same debate series. We had different debates with different opponents, and I remember that years ago. I met Farhan, and those were the good times, times when everyone was together and stuff. And as the years went on, we kind of lost touch. Then, the whole controversy was over your apostasy. I remember making a video about that, and I remember regretting making that video because I said a lot of false things in that video, so I took it down. But anyways, yeah, it's good to talk to Farhan again after all these years. It's good to. We're still we don't have anything against each other, and we're willing to discuss, and that's the important thing here. Even though I'm still a Muslim and he left Islam, but we can still put that aside and still talk about things. So looking forward to this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about where you've been spiritually? How is the Muslim community? How is your iman? How is, are you still involved in apologetics, or have you kind of veered off of it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry, did you have something else to say?
Nope, that was it.
I'm still a Muslim. I still identify myself as a Muslim. But as the years went on, I'm no longer a fundamentalist. That's the thing I want to drive home. Is that I'm still a Muslim. I haven't left Islam. I haven't converted to any other religion or anything like that. I'm still a Muslim, Sunni Muslim. So I never veered off to other sects of Islam. But I'm not I'm not as strict as I used to be. I'm not as conservative, or I'm not as much of a fundamentalist like I used to be. I used to be like a hardcore fundamentalist, but now I'm not like that anymore. I left fundamentals behind. I'm more of a, you would say, liberal Muslim, I guess, liberal Sunni Muslim. That's what I would say. I think I can do that as a Muslim, because there's a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, and this is a Bukhari hadith, is an authentic hadith, where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that religion is very easy. If you overburden yourself being a Muslim, you won't be able to continue on being a Muslim. So I I left the conservative or the Salafi. I guess the Salafi would be the right phrase for it. I left the Salafi sect or the conservative sect of Islam, and I'm more of a liberal Muslim. As for the Muslim community, yeah, I mean, I'm not in touch with them as much as I used to be. You know, everybody's doing their own thing now. I still go to the I still go to the Jummah on Friday prayers and stuff like that. But as for the Muslim community, I'm not, you know, I don't associate with them as much as I used to. And there's a reason for that, and we'll get into that later.
Okay, yeah, all of that's interesting. First and foremost, I am absolutely happy that you're not, you know, following that Salafi, you know, uber conservative brand of Islam. You know, I think that there's a lot of people, particularly millennials and the younger generation, that are having what's called, quote unquote, Salafi burnout. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's good to hear that you're on the liberal side of things, and that's refreshing to hear, brother. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah,
for sure. So let's get into it. I mean, what questions did you have for me? And you know, let's.
Oh yeah, I forgot to answer your. Am I still involved in apologetics? Yes. Let me just quickly answer that. Yes, I am still involved in apologetics, but I no longer, you know, debate Christian apologists or Christian fundamentalists anymore, because I don't think it's worth my time doing that. I just want to make, you know, quality Islamic apologetic content by YouTube videos and articles and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm still involved in apologetics, but I'm not. It's not the way it used to be. Like I don't do the things I used to do. I've calmed down a lot. I think a lot of people have noticed I've calmed down a lot since the early days. Yeah, so that answers the question.
Okay, and the reason why you do apologetics, is it kind of to keep your own iman up? Is it to connect with other people who are thinking about some of the same topics, or like what's your purpose in doing apologetics?
Well, my purpose was, you know, I still feel Islam is like the truth, the only religion that has evidence for itself. I still believe that, you know. Now a lot of, you know, the whole reason why I did that is because years ago, you know, when I was back in high school, I did a lot of research on Christianity and Islam. You know, and then, you know, I read you know, I read a lot of atheist stuff too, and then I came to the conclusion that, you know, Christianity is false, Islam is true, based on, you know, based on the atheist arguments against Christianity. So you know, that's what started it. That's what started it years ago. So as the years went on, you know, I felt like I could, you know, prove Islam by public debate. So that's why. You know, I got into the apologetics field because of David Wood. You know, you and I, we both have a history with him. You know, whether it's a good history or bad history, we'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I got into apologetics mostly because of my own self-interest. You know, my parents were always like, you know, focus on your school, your career, and stuff like that. They weren't. You know, my parents, you know, they're all like hardcore conservative Muslims and stuff like that. But they were always like, focus on your schools, focus on your work, you know, and stuff like that. So they didn't really support what I was doing. But I strongly felt like the way to prove Islam was through apologetics, and I strongly felt Islam was the truth. I still do to this day. So yeah,
yeah, and so most of your apologetics and your arguments, etc., pertain or revolve around Christianity, right? And the Christian apologists like James White and David Wood and these guys.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've engaged with them. Well, that's the thing. Well, let me just say that the Bible and Islam and the Quran and Judaism, Christianity, that's my focus. I mean, I don't care about I mean, I'm just not interested. I'll just put it that way. I'm just not interested in Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism. I just can't get into it. I know a little bit about it, but I'm not like you, you know.
Of course. And like I said, I firmly believe that, you know, each individual has their own temperament, their own personality. And that temperament, that personality, there are things that match with it. There are things that resonate. And so if the Abrahamic religions resonate with you, more power to you. They certainly do not resonate with me.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm not blaming you. Everybody's got their own everyone's got their own interests, their own passions and stuff like that. And if you're passionate about Hinduism and the Indian religions and the Indian ancestry and stuff like that, more power to you. I mean, I'm not.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I not only that, I would say that Hinduism or the Dharmic traditions are true. You know, so I do believe, and I would say that these are this is the true description when it comes to the nature of reality. So, you know, I don't hesitate. But
that's. I mean, but more power to you. I mean, I'm not trying to kill you for doing that.
I would hope not. No, I don't think that you would ever be that type of person at all. But yeah, you know, coming off of our interests, let's go ahead and move into a different topic. Maybe you want to pick like what's going on in apologetics and fundamentalism. I think that was one of the things you wanted to talk about, or
yeah, I mean, yeah, because this kind of goes back personally with me, fundamentalism, because I left fundamentalism, and I left the conservative branch or the Salafi branch of Islam, and the reason why is not because of Islam, not because of the religion, it's because of Muslims. It's because I don't think the problem's with Islam. I think the problem's more with Muslims. As I got older, I realized that I thought Islam brings out the best in people, but that's not always the case. There's a prophecy where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that in the future, before the end times, Muslims would be the worst of people. They would start doing things outside the fold of Islam and stuff like that, or they wouldn't really be following religion. And I see that in my own Muslim community and stuff like that.
So wait, do you follow the Salafi Aqidah still? Are you still like an Athari or
Ashari? I still quote Ibn Kathir and Ibn Taymiyyah and all these hotshot,
So what about like fiqh and stuff like that? Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, or Ilm al-Kalam? Are you Ashari?
I mean, I still follow, the Hanafi. I guess the Hanafi was the one my family followed. So I follow the one, like Hanafis, they pray a different way.
Okay. So you're one of those persons who comes from a Hanafi family, and yet because the local masjid happened to be Salafi, that's the masjid you went to. Is that correct?
I would say it's Salafi. I mean, I don't know they wouldn't go out and say that, but it's a Salafi. It's a big Muslim community. And but as the years went on, as I got to know more and more of the Muslims, I realized that the problems with Muslims. That's why I don't have many Muslim friends, because I have more non-Muslim friends than Muslim friends. And the reason why is because I can't put up with Muslims anymore. They're just not the fundamentalists are just not pleasant people. I don't want to put up with them anymore. So as the years went on, I realized the problem was with Muslims, not with Islam.
Okay.
If you want to comment on that,
Fair enough. I mean, I do think that we all need some type of support and friendship and community to some degree. So, I mean, I would definitely encourage you to connect with people that, that you get along with and that empower you, even if it's not that community. Maybe it's a different Muslim community. But you can't, take yourself away from community, because how are you going to build your faith and grow spiritually and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from, but I mean, coming where I'm coming from, it's more of a problem than a solution. Just hanging out with Muslims, because that's in my humble opinion. Others would disagree.
Okay, fair enough. So you said that you had some questions for me, or
yeah. So we're basically, I wanted to talk about culture versus religion. Let's just jump into that. Do you think that the problems with culture, or do you think the problems with Islam, like, do you think the problems with, like Muslim culture, like Arab culture, or Desi Pakistani Muslim culture, or do you think the problems with the religion of Islam? Because I'm having trouble, understanding your position. So if you want to clear that up,
Sure. It's twofold. Number one, I don't know if you heard my interview with or my conversation with Introverted Smiles. I think one of the realities is that the Muslim community and Islam are being targeted by mainstream media constantly. right? And so what happens is when society, the public in general, constantly see information about Islamic terrorism, they're constantly looking at the news and reading newspaper articles about what's going on in the Middle East. They gain an impression, and likewise, the Muslims in the West feel intimidated that this is how the society that we're living in is looking at us. And there are some people with mental health crises that end up unfortunately doing horrible things. And that's I think that's one part of what I see. Another part of what I see when it comes to Islam, there's so many different schools of thought. So whose Islam are we talking about, right? First and foremost. Secondly, when I say that Islam needs to be reformed, what I mean by it is that the scholars need to start to open their minds to things, right? So when, for example, there's evidence.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Huh?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. So when I say that Islam needs to be reformed, there are definitely elements within Islam that would require reformation. And so one of the more basic examples is that the scholars of Islam should conform to scientific facts, such as evolution. And so, when we talk about reformation, we're talking about opening up the interpretation to some of these types of things. And so that's what I believe. Do I think that Islam itself needs to be reformed? Yes.
No, I mean, I see that, but my question was that the culture. Do you think the problems with religion or culture? Because I think the problems with the culture, not with the religion.
Well, I mean, when I think about culture, I think about like customs. I think about like food and dress and some of the different personalities that come out of a particular culture. So I'm not. What would be your specific objection against culture when it comes to Islam, for clarification purposes?
Like me, I think it's cultural reasons because me, I'm more of a liberal. I'm more of a like I won't drink alcohol or eat pork or anything like that because Islam forbids alcohol, pork.
Oh yeah, that kind of stuff I wouldn't say stop with some of it, right? I mean, obviously we don't want to cut hands off and stone people and whip people, but in terms of those moral issues, like eating pork, or eating meat and drinking alcohol, intoxicants, getting addicted, promiscuity, that kind of stuff. Absolutely, that's what a moral framework and a spiritual framework is for, is to discipline us and purify us. So I'm with you on that. I don't think that we disagree on that.
No, like the cultural issues. I've noticed that some Muslims are so so conservative, so ultra conservative that they won't even allow their women to go out in America. I'm not talking about the Middle East. I'm talking like America. Like I was at my friend's house. I won't say his name, but I was at my friend's house a few weeks ago, and he didn't even allow his sisters or his mom to answer the door because I was there. And then I was like, and then one of my other friends, he was a non-Muslim, and he was like, "Is this what Islam really teaches, that women can't even answer the door?" I'm like, "No, it's culture. It has to do with culture." Because he's Palestinian, and I think Arabs, they're more ultra conservative and stuff like that. So do you think it's the culture that the culture of people, and whether they're in the Middle East or in America, that makes the culture makes the Muslims do these extremist things and stuff like that? I would never do that with my sister or my mom. If they want,
that's the Salafi school of thought, bro. Like if you listen to Dawa, man, he objects against free mixing. He's all for segregation and etc. I think that there are interpretations of Islam that require that kind of parda, right? They call it parda, where men and women cannot talk, boys and girls cannot talk, adolescents cannot talk. And some people argue that that's not rooted in culture, but it's actually rooted in Islam.
No, my sister and my mom and my dad, they're very knowledgeable about Islam, and my dad doesn't care. He allows my sister and mom to go out and answer the door, and
even that might be cultural then. From a Salafi point of view, then that might be cultural. The fact that you.
And yeah, my dad. He's very orthodox, conservative, and stuff like that. I mean, he allows my sister to go out and stuff like that. But this person, he didn't even allow his mom and sister to answer the door. I mean, obviously there's some cultural issues here. I don't think Islam teaches that, man. I don't think.
No, but I think that they actually believe Islam teaches it. I don't think that it's coming from like Pakistani culture or Arab culture. I think that there are Salafis that genuinely believe that free mixing is impermissible. So, I mean, but that being said, I agree with you that I think that that's too strict. You know what I mean?
But you think that's culture, though? Would you agree with me that's culture and not religion? Because religion is very, like I said, that hadith where the Prophet Muhammad said, religion is very easy. If you overburden yourself, you won't be able to continue. So do you think that's culture or do you think that's religion? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, my honest opinion, based on what I know, I think that that particular issue is religion, right? And because there are hadith, and I can't recall the hadith on top of my head right now because I wasn't, I wasn't planning on talking about hijab and parda and that kind of stuff. But there's definitely a hadith that say that there shouldn't be free mixing and that kind of stuff. But so I do think that there are Muslims that try to root that in scripture.
Oh,
But,
okay.
yeah, I'm not sure how you go about saying that that's cultural.
Because I don't know, because I noticed like culture, like it plays an important part in how you identify yourself as a Muslim. Would you agree or disagree on that?
No, I mean, I think culture is definitely, yeah, the culture is definitely a big part of who we are. I mean, you and I are clearly, American. The
Yeah.
American culture has impacted us in the way that we think. Our brain is wired that way. We're not pretending to talk and act the way that we do. This is how we were shaped and molded. This is who
Oh
we
yeah, yeah. I would identify myself as American. I go to Wendy's. I watch. I've seen Batman versus Superman thousands of times. I'm as American as it gets.
Awesome, wonderful, beautiful. I love it.
So, but do you think that when Muslims come to America, they still have that culture ingrained in them? Do you think that they'll never be liberal Muslims or like me?
Well, there's liberals in all countries at the Sham. There's liberals in Pakistan. I don't know if I mean, I know plenty of Muslim liberals who came straight out of Pakistan, in the way that they think and the way that they act. I don't know why this person popped up in my head, but the physicist, what's his name? The one that Hamza debated, Hamza Zortsi's debated. What's that Pakistani guy's name? Hood boy, right? So he's like a liberal type in Pakistan, like straight out of Pakistan, right? Professor Hood boy, the physicist.
Okay, I never heard of him, but okay.
I mean, well, there's many other people. I'm sure you have relatives who complain about religion all the time, even though they're Muslim. You know what I mean? And they don't necessarily wear hijab and stuff. So there's liberals everywhere. So, but do I think that people, who are surrounded by a particular community, like or if they have a particular upbringing in a community, when they go out into the liberal world or go out into the Western world, that they have a difficult time assimilating and adapting? I think that that's definitely the case. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, as the years went on, I realized it's culture. It's not Islam, and women issues and stuff like that. It was really like, my dad, he never cared about, like, he always trusted my mom and sister. He would allow them to go out and stuff like that because he always trusted them. But then, like, some Muslims, they don't even allow their women to go out, and that's like, that really bothers me because that gives like a bad name to Muslims.
For sure. What about music? Do you listen to music? I mean, you watch movies.
Yeah, I listen to Katy Perry and all that stuff. I mean, not Katy Perry, but
yeah, I was like, come on, bro. No, it's okay. She's all right. But no, but the point is that you're open.
Like soundtracks, like Star Wars soundtracks, Batman vs Superman. I got the whole soundtrack on my iPhone. So yeah, I listen to music. Yeah.
Sweet. Now, I mean, I'm glad to hear this from you, man. That there's regular human beings in the Muslim community, and I think people need to see that at the Sham. That there's normal, regular people who are just like the rest of us Americans. Mm-hmm. And that's important for people to see. So I appreciate you for you being open and for you being yourself.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, but then that goes back to fundamentalism. Do you think fundamentalism is causing problems?
Was causing a lot of apostasy for sure, right?
Okay.
There's people who are getting burnt out. There are people who are just upset with the way that these scholars are teaching Islam, and they don't want anything to do with it anymore. So yeah, I think fundamentalism is a problem, and the Muslim community needs to step up. Muslims need to step up and do something about it. Look, in 1974, Muslim ulama had gotten together and they declared Ahmadiyya as kuffar, as outside of the fold of Islam. So
Yeah,
if ulama can come and get together and do that, then why can't ulama come together and make not just a verbal fatwa against this kind of fundamentalism, not just against terrorism, but these kinds of interpretations that lead to fundamentalism? That the ulama need to get together and make a statement about it. Muslims should be marching against these kinds of Muslims, protesting outside of the masajid where these types of things are being preached. When we in the West and we in the world begin to see Muslims protesting other Muslims, these fundamentalists, that's when we're going to be like, okay, there's the Muslim community that we're looking for. There's the Muslim community that we're calling for. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
until that
You're
happens,
you're always going to have fundamentalists, right? You're always going to have these strict, hardcore, conservative liberals that don't let their women go out, that they don't let their kids listen to music. If they eat, Wendy's chicken nuggets, they better leave the house because it's going to be World War III. You know what I mean? You're always going to have these fundamentalists and these conservatives, causing like trapping, and not even kids, but their own kids and people. They trap people in there. They don't let them out, or they threaten them with abandonment and stuff like that if they don't follow certain rules and stuff like that. Like one of my friends, he got married, and he was telling me, I'm not going to reveal his name. He's from Yemen, and then he was telling me like his wife's brothers are so strict on her that they would like check her phone and do all kinds of like things to her. They would like hit her and stuff like that. And then I realized that it's culture because Islam doesn't allow hitting women and stuff like that. So do you think it's
yeah, that kind of stuff I would agree. Like the misogyny, the way that certain Muslims treat women, or and that kind of, yeah, I think that part is cultural. I agree with you.
Yeah, so you would agree some of the vices of Islam are cultural, or some of the problems in the Muslim community, whether it's back in the Middle East or over here, or Muslim countries or over here, it's cultural. You don't think it's the religion, do you? Because I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, that specifically, the way like families work and the way kids are treated and wives are treated, and the way that the husband has the authority. I think that is cultural, because I've known Pakistani families who aren't too religious but still act that way, right, towards their kids or towards their spouse, and they would never even pray. So that part has nothing to do with Islam. That's cultural. Only reason why I said that the parda hijab free mixing part wasn't cultural is because Muslims will argue that men and women, or old enough boys and girls, should not be communicating. So that thing could be argued as a religious viewpoint. What you're talking about in terms of misogyny and the way that they treat their kids and their wife, I think that is largely a cultural thing. Yeah. I also, go ahead.
Yeah. So do you think, like, I was talking about Nabil Qureshi, because Nabil Qureshi's been making headlines because he has stomach cancer. I don't know if you know that or not.
Would I not know that? How would I not know that? I know his family. I know his parents, his sister.
Okay. So,
yeah.
but anyways, I was talking to one of Nabil Qureshi's relatives, and they were saying that the reason why he left Islam is because his family was, one of his reasons he left Ahmadi Islam is because his family was very strict on him. So do you think that causes, like that strictness causes people to leave Islam? Because we're talking about subjectivity and emotions and stuff like that. Do you think that if they're so hardcore fundamentalist and they're beating their kids or whatever, that eventually they're going to leave Islam because of the hardcore conservative nature?
Well, I mean,
of it?
the way that I look at it is that yes, fundamentalism, parents that are strict make it difficult for youth growing up in this country to be Muslim. I will agree with you there. I think a lot of people will leave Islam without looking into the religion based on just them saying that, you know what, this religion isn't for me. I think that that happens a lot, but I also think that there are others who look at the worldview, the narrative that Islam spells out, the overall narrative, and they say that that doesn't make sense to me logically. And so I think that both of those elements are there, but I do think that a lot of people leave Islam for emotional reasons, but you can't just say it's emotional, right? You have to understand that they're coupled with emotion is always a justification for it in their own mind. And so since we're speaking in generic terms, we can't really say, what those justifications are and whether those justifications are valid or not.
So, like, let me ask you, you left Islam because of that reason of health, right?
For sure.
So, yeah, so can I, yeah, so if you can just briefly talk about that, because I had some questions about that, because nobody can disprove hell. I can't disprove it, you can't disprove it. That's a supernatural realm that, we can't really, like, believers in God believe in hell, but nobody can disprove hell. No one can disprove heaven, hell, God, and stuff like that.
No,
So
I actually believe in hellish realms where suffering occurs for a good reason, right? The problem of evil.
if you
So
left
it's not that I
Islam,
don't believe in hellish realms, but so I left Islam because of the doctrine of hell, and it's not that whether I can prove hell or not. What I did was, after I studied psychology, I understood human behavior. I understood why people believe the things that they believe, how indoctrination occurs, how brainwashing occurs, how operant and classical conditioning occurs at the level of the brain and at the level of practical, at the level of practical circumstances. And what I realized was that my parents, a lot of the Muslims that I knew, a lot of the non-Muslims that I knew would never be interested in religion. And even if they were interested in religion, maybe they wouldn't understand it correctly. Maybe they would have biases that would keep them from accepting Islam. And then, once I realized that people are who they are and think the way that they think, and we have empirical evidence for this, I could no longer blame these people for rejecting Islam. And then it boggled my mind even more when it says that people who study the religion decide that it's not for them, decide that give some type of justification why this religion doesn't make sense to them, that they should be tortured for eternity in fire, where their skin is burned off and replaced with new skin endlessly, where they're thrown into boiled water, dragged out, they escape it successfully, and then they're poked by an iron rod that drags them back into the water. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a master logician to look at that narrative and say that this is wrong logically, and it doesn't make any sense at all, right? So that's kind of my route, and
so,
that's the reason
so
why.
you think hellfire is unjust for non-Muslims because it just doesn't make any sense to torture people to reject Islam because Islam's not for everybody. Is that what you're saying? Or
Well, that's one of the things, right? But the second aspect is that it's for eternity. It never ends. Your skin is constantly burned off and replaced with new skin. It never ends. Cruel and unusual punishments in the United States of America are prohibited. In a matter of fact, from what I understand, the vast majority of countries will not apply cruel and unusual punishments that are temporary, let alone Jahannam being cruel and unusual punishment for eternity. The way I look at it is, if you have an objection against terrorism, if you have an objection against Adolf Hitler and other people who tortured people on a temporary basis, then what we would turn God into is the ultimate terrorist, is the ultimate Adolf Hitler, where torture and cruel and unusual punishment never ends. And that is a gross allegation against God.
oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, I would just say that I don't agree with you. I respectfully disagree, but I would just say life is a test. Some people pass, some people don't. And then the way I see it is that there's God, and then there's the world, and then the world is a test. People are
But you can't
For
brush
you,
it off and say the world is the test, bro. If you go and see human beings tortured in Syria right now, if you see what's happened in Syria, they're blown up. You see those kids, you see the men and women that are suffering, right? It's not funny. It's not something that you can just brush off, right? And
no,
if
I'm
you
not.
can't brush that,
I'm not brushing it off. I'm not. You know, I'm not trying to. You know, I'm not justifying any of that. You know.
what I'm comparing it to is Jahannam, right? You can't just say that, oh, good and bad people, whether they believed in Islam or not. You're talking about grotesque, cruel and unusual torture. You can't just say, oh, some people this, some people that. I'm sorry, not me.
Okay, but okay, yeah. But getting back to what I was saying, like life is a test. The way I personally see it, and the way the Quran and Islam describe the Hadith describe it, is life is a test. When people pass, they go to heaven. If people don't pass, they go to hell. So you wouldn't even agree with that premise.
Oh no, that's an atrocious premise, and I would argue logically from empirical evidence in psychology why that is not only immoral but unjust.
Oh, okay. Then why would God? Yeah, see, I don't know, because why would God then like allow the problem of evil and stuff like that? Like, what are your take on the problem of evil?
So right, so then we have theodicy, right? Theodicy is a response to the problem of evil, why evil exists. So from this perspective, from the dharmic perspective, and from the way that I understand it, the best that I can, is that there is soul building going on, that everyone goes through what they go through in order to learn the lessons that they're supposed to learn in order to grow and evolve spiritually. So the good and bad that happens is there to help us grow spiritually. It's not there to punish us. It's not there to torture us. It's not there in that, both in this world and in the worlds to come. All suffering is not for punishment. It's there to help us grow and to purify us.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from, and my views have softened a lot over the years. I think you've already noticed this. You know, I'm not as harsh as I used to be. Like when you left Islam, that was a big deal. You know, that was a big deal in the whole apologetics world. I made videos, mocking your race and ethnicity and stuff like that. And I've come to regret that. So when you left Islam, can you just briefly describe when you left Islam? And my question is, like, why would you go public with your leaving of Islam? Like, when there are consequences of going public, like people who leave Islam, they risk leaving their community, their family behind. And I think you talked about this with Abdullah Samir. When you leave Islam, there's consequences to doing so. So people who go public with it will, they'll risk alienating their family, their community, their friends, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be like, Batman going public as Bruce Wayne. That would cause problems for Gotham City. That's just an analogy I'm bringing forth. But yeah, would you mind talking about your public declaration of apostasy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's for everyone to. Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think that it's for everyone to go public with what they believe, with their transitions in life. You know what I mean? For most people, that is not something that they want to make public or would like to make public. For me personally, I think that this is a very important issue. It impacted me a lot when I was Muslim, because I had to believe that my parents and my family were Qadianis. I grew up in America where everybody was atheist, agnostic, Christian, or didn't care. And so I'm wired, and I have been wired since I've been a little child, to be obsessed over the nature of reality. What is going on? Why is it going on? What is the purpose of life? And I'm interested in figuring it out. That's why I talk to people. That's why I've debated in the past. I like conversations like this much better because we're actually processing and thinking about what each other say. So yeah, I've debated and had conversations in general, to share what's going on with me, to see if other people can relate to it, or am I the only one who's thinking this way? You know what I mean? Am I delusional, right? And if I am, I want to talk about it. So to challenge myself, to challenge my own beliefs. I'm reaching out even now on YouTube to learn, right? Even coming out with Hinduism, we don't have a big Hindu community here. I went to a lot of Buddhist Sangha, but most of the Hindu places here are temples where you'll just go doing puja and stuff like that. So I was looking for a Sangha, and a lot of the Sanghas or the community that I go to are Buddhist. So, and I'm not limiting to myself to Buddhism. Obviously, I'm Hindu for sure. I'm specifically Hindu. This is what I believe. This is how I see reality. But Buddhism to me is Dharma. It's this, we're meditating. So, sharing that information, getting feedback from people. I mean, I've studied Hinduism, for 6 years. And I have to say that I've learned a lot since coming out on YouTube. So many Hindus have contacted me. I've had so many conversations with people, so I'm finding this whole experience to be awesome.
Oh, okay. No, like my question was like, was there consequences of you leaving Sunni Islam with your family and stuff like that? That was my question.
Oh, no. Because remember, when I left Ahmadiyya when I was 17, that was when it was the end of the world for my family, right?
Oh, okay.
That's when my keys got taken away and I wasn't allowed to go to the Sunni masjid, and there were tears, and I was less than a cockroach to somebody. So, so it was really bad back then. So that's when I became really quiet. And then only a few years later, in my early 20s, did I actually come out and say, you know what, I'm confident in my Islam. I'm confident in having studied Khatam al-Nubuwah. Now I can talk about it. And so, I left Ahmadiyya, waited a few years, and then I came out and talked about Khatam al-Nubuwah. Likewise, it took, a few years before I said that, I don't believe this anymore in terms of Jahannam and hell and exclusivity. And, in order for me to come out as an apostate from Islam. And then it took me another 6 years of studying Hinduism to say, you know what? Yeah, I am Hindu. This is my sadhana. This is what I believe.
Oh, okay. So your family didn't care when you left Islam. They were when you left Sunni Islam. I'm talking about the Sunni Islam days. They didn't care.
Right. So they didn't care about that. They were more concerned about the Ahmadiyya than they were Sunni.
Oh, okay. So your parents are still within that Ahmadiyya sect.
Oh, of course. My whole family is, totally into it. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Ahmadiyya. Do you consider them Muslims? It's because Nabil Qureshi is going out of his way to try to convince people he was an ex-Muslim, because he wants to do the Bart Ehrman approach. The Bart Ehrman approach, what I call the Bart Ehrman approach. The Bart Ehrman approach is anybody who claims to have studied a religion and left Islam, and then left that religion, they're suddenly an expert on that religion. So I think he wants to copy Bart Ehrman. So would you just comment on Ahmadiyyas? Are they, in your opinion, are they part of mainstream Islam, or are they something else?
Now their theologically, they're Muslim, right? They follow the Hanafi fiqh. They pray like Hanafis. Their women wear the hijab. They go to Mecca for Hajj. They believe in their shahada is exactly the same. Nothing added, nothing subtracted. The 5 pillars of Islam, the 6 articles of Iman, they recite the Quran and the Quran only. So they walk like a duck, talk like a duck. So to anyone outside of the community who's indifferent towards Islam would say that they're Muslim, right? They themselves claim to be Muslim. Now, if you compare them, for example, to the Baha'i faith, right? If you compare the Ahmadiyya to the Baha'i faith have a similar narrative in Iran, but they don't practice Islam. They don't claim to be Muslim. They don't pray 5 times a day. They don't, study fiqh and usul, and the hadith, and so there's a clear difference between the Baha'i faith and the Ahmadiyya. The Baha'i faith voluntarily says that we are an extension of the Abrahamic faith. It went from Judaism, Christianity, Islam to the Baha'i faith. Whereas Ahmadiyya says, no, we are Muslim. We practice Islam. We believe Muhammad is the greatest man that ever lived. And so they claim to be Muslim. And so, they walk like a duck, they talk like a duck, they're the duck. But I do not take away the right for theologians who have a set of doctrines to say that this is orthodoxy, this is, and that's heterodox, right? So I do think That's what I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was my because Aquadia, because I heard like there was you had an interview with somebody and I forgot that person's name, but then you were saying like the majority of Muslims don't consider Aquadia Muslim. So it would be like saying like Jehovah's Witness is Christian because Jehovah's Witness adds extra stuff to Christianity. So wouldn't that apply with Ahmadis? Because Ahmadis add extra stuff to Islam. They say Ghulam Mirza Ahmad was a prophet, and there could be prophets that come after the prophet Muhammad, but there's some they have to follow they have to follow Muhammad. But then you're adding extra stuff to Islam, and that doesn't that take you out of Orthodox Islam? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, for example, and Seventh-day Adventists, they're Christian, right? They claim to be Christian. They go to church. The Bible is what they hold to be sacred. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Seventh-day Adventists are Christian. They are heterodox Christian, right? Mainstream Christians do not consider their heresies to be Christian, and hence they don't consider them to be Christian. In the same way, Ahmadiyya, Ismailiyya, and so on and so forth, Alawiyya, and so on, you know, they're Muslim, they're heterodox, their heresies take them outside of the fold of Islam according to mainstream orthodoxy. That's the way it works.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about. There's a video, and let's get into David Wood for a second because we both have a history with him. There's a video where you're rebuking David Wood. So, did you have any contact with him? Do you have any contact with him these days, or what are your thoughts on his apologetics?
I mean, I haven't seen him in a while. You know, we're Facebook friends. So, you know, I see him and I'm Facebook friends with his wife, Marie, who is an amazing human being, I came to find out that before she married David Wood, that she was agnostic universalist like me. You know, she believed in universalism, whatever flows, you know, whatever makes you a better person, whatever spiritually connects you. And, you know, and she was she was on the right path. And then David misguided her. No, I'm joking. But Marie is a beautiful human being. They have 4 amazing kids together. And, you know, and I don't agree with, I don't agree with, you know, everything that he does or says, but you're never going to agree with everyone. There's nobody that you're going to agree with completely. And I wouldn't do the things that he would do. I wouldn't condone dressing up like a woman. I wouldn't condone being provocative to instigate Muslims. I wouldn't condone, you know, with the self-fulfilled prophecy where you go provoke Muslims and get the expected result of anger. I wouldn't do those things, but I don't judge David. I think he's a cool guy. I think he's come a long way spiritually. He's grown since his traumatic childhood and adolescence and so on and so forth. And so I'm just appreciative that David is who he is today as a father, as a human being that has been alleviated of those mental health issues that he used to have. And I'm just grateful for that.
Isn't he mentally ill? Didn't he try to kill his father with a hammer? And doesn't he have like antisocial personality disorder? Because I was talking to Richard Carrier about him because this whole thing has started back in 2010 with the whole Arab Fest thing. That's when I realized that psychologically there's something not right with him. He's not all there mentally. There's, you know, he's mentally ill. Would you agree with that, or you think I'm out of line?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and give my impression about diagnoses and stuff like that, because that would be unethical. But I don't believe that there's any such thing as normal. So I think everybody has mental health issues to some degree. Obviously, not everybody has serious mental health issues like psychopathy, schizophrenia, or bipolar disorder, right? Nobody has the severity of it, but there's no such thing as normal. There is a such thing as functional. And given that that's the case, I think that we tend to see, you know, if you study psychology, you can see a lot of these things, but they ultimately don't matter, man. We're all human beings. We're all struggling with life. It's wrong to label somebody as mentally ill and just leave it out. That's not all that they are, right?
He is mentally ill. I mean, his old mom put him in a mental hospital. I mean, you know,
But illness,
Doesn't
not all mental illness is like, like autism is lifetime, right? Not all mental illnesses stay the same. So the idea is, if you're going through therapy, if you're on medication, if you go, if you have a community support, if you have family support, you're going to get better, right? And clearly is no longer trying to kill people. He's even toned down a little bit over the last 2 or 3 years, to be honest with you. And so, but yeah, I don't agree with some of the things that he does. I'm not here to judge him.
Oh, okay. But then why is he putting up like, videos of stuff like that? Do you think
You cut off there, bro. Say it again.
why is he putting up videos of him like putting on women's dresses and stuff like that? Don't you think that's part of his mental illness? He's not getting better. In fact, he's getting worse, because that's just too extreme for my.
Yeah, I mean, sarcasm isn't a part of psychopathy, right? Sarcasm isn't part of antisocial personality disorder. So, I mean, I think that people are sarcastic. They have their own jokes inside of their head that they think that they're funny, and other people don't think that those jokes are funny. Like, I'm sure that you have thoughts in your head that you internally think are funny, right? But you wouldn't express that verbally because it would be offensive to people, right? And so, no, I don't agree with that at all. Obviously, at the Sham, I think that it's ridiculous. But he thinks that he's a comedian. He tries to be a comedian. He's funny sometimes, and sometimes people go over the lines, and sometimes people are just looking for ratings, bro. Sometimes they're just looking for views on YouTube. That's what I've learned, and so I think that all of those factors play into it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just wanted to know, because me and Richard Carrier were talking about that in our interview, and then Richard Carrier was like, "No, I wouldn't have any interaction because he's too fundamentally dishonest." So, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
For sure.
But yeah, another thing I wanted to talk to you about was your interview with Abdullah Samir. Can you briefly talk about that, because I think you two have similar arguments against Islam. So can you just briefly talk about that whole thing?
I enjoyed talking to Abdullah Samir. He's looked at these things. He studied these things. Clearly, he studied these things. So, for example, he knew V.S. Ramachandran. He understood determinism versus free will. So he's clearly looked at these things, thought about them, and made a decision for himself, and good for him.
Oh, okay. So does this story mirror your story, or is it different?
I think that there's similarities for sure. It's interesting, man. There's similarities between myself and Abdullah Samir. There are, believe it or not, similarities between me and Introverted Smiles. So there's always similarities that we can find and appreciate. But yeah, if you listen to a lot of what he talks about, hell, evolution, a lot of those things were the same issues that I had, for sure.
Okay. Do you think people like leave Islam and join other religions like Christianity because they want like attention for themselves and stuff? Because I think, as I was talking to Nabil Qureshi, one of Nabil Qureshi's relatives, like years ago, and he was saying like his theory on why he left Ahmadi Islam for Christianity is because he was feeling the love or Christians were giving him. So do you think people leave Islam, or they leave certain religions and join other religions to get more attention or feel good about themselves? What do you think? Because I think that really nails Nabil Qureshi's issues. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, I think Nabil spent 5 years with David Wood. The way that I remember his story is that David and Nabil went back and forth vigorously for 5 years. And Nabil was genuinely trying to convert David to Ahmadiyya. And David Wood was genuinely trying to convert Nabil Qureshi. And eventually, 5 years down the line, Nabil, looked at the evidence for the resurrection and he went that direction. But I think it was more than that. Obviously, he talks about these dreams. In terms of the dreams, I believe that those dreams, come from the fact that he was thinking about this, constantly for 5 years. So, the dreams and the visions don't surprise me at all. I don't think that it's just community and support and attention. although all human beings need community support and attention, that is something that we learn in school, in psychology, and in social work. Human beings, it doesn't matter if you're an infant, it doesn't matter if you're a really old elderly person, every human being needs support and love and attention and community and family. And if you don't have it, you could experience, different degrees of suffering. So do I think that that's an issue for all of us? Absolutely. But I don't think that's the reason why Nabil converted. And in terms of why people convert from one religion to another, there's so many reasons that people convert. Sometimes it could be genuinely about the purpose of life. Sometimes it could be suffering and pain that they're going through. Maybe they lost a loved one, maybe they lost a job or went through a divorce, and they're seeking God, you know what I mean? And they're not finding it in their community, and so they search for it wherever they might find it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I heard his dad was really like harsh on him and stuff like that. So, and then people were saying, well, that's why he left Ahmadi Islam, because his family was too harsh on him. But I mean, I don't know if those two. I haven't talked to Nabil in years. I don't know. I'm not in contact with him, so I don't know if any of that's true or not. Same thing with David Wood. I haven't spoken to any of those people in years. I don't.
There's so many contributing factors, right? So for example, if we were to go into why somebody converted to Islam, anybody, you know what I mean? Even Hamza Yusuf. So for example, I was listening to a Hamza Yusuf interview, and he said when he was a child, his brother used to play Arabic music. And then the interviewer asked him, oh, so is that where you got started being interested in Middle Eastern or Arabic culture? And lo and behold, for sure. So does that mean because Hamza Yusuf's interest in Islam originates in Arab secular music that his conversion isn't legitimate? Of course not. Listen, there's multiple reasons why people convert. There's emotional reasons, there's logical justifications. Ultimately, a person should be authentic to their own experience.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get but you bring up Hamza Yusuf and things like that. So do you, in your opinion, you think that, he's Muslim because he likes the Muslim culture and the Middle Eastern culture and Arab culture?
That's a part of it.
That's part of it, but you wouldn't say.
Wait, say it again?
So you wouldn't say that's the main reason why he, it has to do with other things.
You can't just pinpoint one thing and say that's why this person converted. There are multiple reasons why a person goes in the direction that they go in. It's never one or two or three things. And so with Hamza Yusuf, no, it wasn't just him listening to Arabic music and liking it in his childhood. In the 60s, the hippie culture was rebellious against what the American government was doing in foreign countries. Out of the result of that, people started seeking foreign religions. His mother was a Buddhist. He turned to Islam. In addition, I'm sure he read certain things that resonated. He visited the Muslim community. Something about the Muslim community spiritually and emotionally resonated. So you have all of these different emotional factors that go into Hamza Yusuf's conversion, and you have all of these logical justifications that go into Hamza Yusuf's conversion. Just like everyone else, Nabil Qureshi, Farhan Qureshi, and anybody else who seeks God and religion and information and truth.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I mean, so you don't have any contact with the Christian apologists we used to, debate? Have you ever had contact with Sam Shamoun or David Wood or any of those people? Or is that those days are done? They're not coming back?
No, I mean, obviously I'm in contact, via Facebook with David and his wife and Nabil Qureshi and Nabil Qureshi's family. Sam Shamoun, obviously not. He's a Christian fundamentalist. James White, I haven't spoken to him in forever, but I like the shift. If it is a shift, maybe he's been consistent with this, but I like James White in terms of his integrity and intellectual honesty. I haven't been in touch with him, but yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, George Saig has called my phone a bunch of times. I wasn't interested in George Saig's phone calls. apparently we were supposed to set up a debate with Matt Slick. Matt Slick agreed to debate me. I agreed to debate Matt Slick. We were going to do it, and there was just a conflict of schedule, and so that's the last I heard from.
So you're not involved in like the Christian fundamentalists, or you're not involved with debating Christian apologists anymore and stuff like that. Because I'm not.
Yeah, I would totally be willing to debate Christians on exclusivity and some of the problems that I have with Christianity. I mean, I would be willing to. I haven't been pursuing it.
Oh, okay. Because like me now, like if you want to know like what I'm up to now, I'm trying to get Robert M. Price. You ever heard of him? I'm trying to get him to Michigan.
Yeah, atheist, right?
Yeah, atheist. Yeah, I'm trying to get him to Michigan. So in September he's coming, and then I'm in contact with Richard Carrier and Bart Ehrman. So yeah, that's what I've been getting those people. George Saig, I've been in contact with him. He wants me to debate, but I'm just not interested in Christian apologetics and stuff like that. Not anymore. I
was gonna say, sorry to interrupt. A lecture that you should listen to if you haven't already from Richard Carrier. I know that you interviewed him, and he's a friend of yours to some degree. Richard Carrier did this lecture called "Are Christians Delusional?" And if you haven't heard it, yeah, I would definitely recommend just for information purposes and perspective purposes. That's a pretty good video.
Oh, okay. So you're not doing what you used to do.
No, I would be open to, but I'm not interested at the moment. But I would be interested, particularly on the issue of exclusivity. That's the issue that I'm interested in.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, because I'm trying to get like Robert M. Price and Bart Ehrman to talk about their perspectives on the Bible and stuff like that. So there's upcoming things on my channel. So if you want to view that,
I'm a huge fan of Bart Ehrman. So if you do ever get to interview Bart Ehrman, I'm going to be envious because I have his books. I mean, it would definitely be amazing to talk to him. I have a ton of respect for Bart Ehrman. So if you get an interview with him, I'm going to be watching for sure.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just the reason why I said, various religions, and I wanted to talk to you about this too, is because in my trailer video, the video advertising this interview, I said various religions instead of you converted to Hinduism. And the reason why I said that is because you yourself, I said that on purpose. And the reason why I said that is because you said that you are agnostic, then a universalist, then you follow the stream of thought from Buddhism and Hinduism. So, if you want to comment on me saying various religions instead of Hinduism.
Well, first of all, agnosticism isn't a religion, right? Agnosticism isn't a religion. And I was never, and I am not agnostic about the existence of God, right? There's a difference between epistemology and ontology. We don't know what God is, but that doesn't mean that we cannot have an epistemology to know God, right? So what I'm agnostic about is the fundamental nature of what reality or God is. But here's the thing, no one knows what God is, right? Christian scholars will admit that they're agnostic about ontology. Muslim scholars will admit that they're agnostic about ontology. And so we have to admit that we don't know what this is, right? But it is what it is. In Sanskrit, tattvam asi, right? I am that, right? So
because there's allegations of you changing your religion to, because you've changed like multiple views over the years, from Ahmadi to Sunni to agnostic to Hinduism to universalism.
But that's not correct, though. That's not correct. That's not correct. First of all, like what I'm explaining is agnostic isn't a religion, right? When I left Islam and I claimed to be agnostic theist, which I still claim today, right? I claimed universalism back then, and I still claim universalism today, right? So I claimed the perennial philosophy back then, and I still claim the perennial philosophy today. So, and these are not religions, right? They're simply philosophical discourses. All three of those are philosophical discourses, not religions. Universalism is not a religion. You could be a Christian universalist. You could be a Muslim universalist. Agnosticism isn't a religion. I've heard of agnostic Muslims. I've heard of agnostic Christians. Okay. So, and the perennial philosophy is not a religion. It's simply saying that all religions have these fundamental universal truths, that all is one, right? Advaita, Wahdatul Wujud, and so on and so forth. So those were never religions, right?
So
never.
Why is why is there accusations of you changing your religion all over, you know, YouTube and the internet and stuff?
Who's accusing me of changing my religion?
Like Yaya Snow and people like that.
I don't. By the way, I love Yaya Snow. I think he's a very good brother. So I do have respect for him, even if he said those things which are incorrect. And he knows, out of all people, that I've been into Hinduism. He knows better. If you Google my name with Yaya Snow, an article will come up from a few years ago where Sam Shamoon confused my recognition of Jesus's divinity as being a Christian statement with it actually being a Hindu statement, right? I was claiming it from the perspective of Hinduism years ago, right? And Yahya Snow wrote, hopefully it is definitely still up. I looked it up a couple of weeks ago. So he wrote an article saying that Sam Shimon confused my Hindu philosophy with Christianity. And so Yahya Snow knows better than anybody else. Nabil, for example, Nabil Qureshi and I were out in DC like 3-4 years ago, maybe. And we went to look at a Middle Eastern exhibit. There was a Middle Eastern exhibit where they had many different things from the Middle East there, including a door from the Kaaba. One of the ancient doors of the Kaaba was there in the museum in DC, and there were signs, "Do not touch." And both me and Nabil looked at each other and touched the Kaaba door. So, and when we had a great time. And when we left, he was asking me, what do I think about this? Like 3-4 years ago, he was asking me about what do I think about Gandhi, and I said that he's a divine incarnation. And then out of synchronicity or coincidence, we were walking, and there was a big Nataraj, a big image of Lord Shiva. And as soon as we didn't know it was going to come up, but there was an image there, and as soon as I said it, I bowed. So Nabil Qureshi knows, David and Marino, when I visited there, when I went to the debates in New York, right? When I debated David at New York University and at Rutgers, we talked about Hinduism and how I'm into Hinduism and meditate. So my parents have known forever. So Hinduism is not a new thing. So there's no allegations that I switched religions, okay? So here's what happened. I left Islam. I said I'm agnostic. I believe in the perennial philosophy. I believe in universalism, all of which are not religions. They are philosophical discourses. In addition, I said that I am studying and learning and practicing Hinduism and Buddhism. Now, I personally do not consider Buddhism to be a separate religion from Hinduism. I personally believe that Buddhism is Hinduism, and it's an extension of it. We believe
wasn't
an avatar of Lord Vishnu.
Wasn't Buddhism a spin-off of Hinduism?
It is Hinduism. It's not a spin-off. It's an extension.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know, and even beyond Buddha, we had other gurus that have come, you know, Adi Shankara and Swami Vivekananda. That doesn't mean that there's now a Vivekananda religion and a Shankara religion. It's simply Hinduism. It's Sanatana Dharma. You know, it is what it is. So, no, I don't consider, the reason why I distinguished Buddhism and Hinduism back then is because even to an extent, there is a differentiation. It's like saying Sunni and Shia or Protestant and Catholic, right? There is a difference. But ultimately, you know, even when I go to Buddhist Sanghas today, whenever I've gone to Buddhist Sanghas, I've always been Hindu. I believe in Atman Brahman, which means that the higher self and the ultimate reality are one reality. And so this is not true. I've not switched religions over and over again. When I left Islam again in 2011, I declared my philosophical situation. I said Hinduism and Buddhism. And like I said, it took 6 years for me to say that my sadhana, which means my daily practice, and my beliefs are totally Hindu. My genetics are totally Hindu. So, you know, there's nothing, I should, you know, recognize my ancestry. Hinduism is the epitome of the perennial philosophy. Without Hinduism, the perennial philosophy wouldn't be what it is today. You know what I mean? The perennial philosophy is a Western appreciation of Hinduism, to be honest with you, and the fact that the rest of the religions say the same thing. This is what Sanatana Dharma is, the primordial path. And so, no, I mean, if you really want to go that route, you know, I was thinking about doing a video, I still might. Abdul Rahim Green switched his religion like 15 times before Islam. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to show him in one lecture, he goes over the 15 times he's converted, right? Watch that video when I publish it.
Oh yeah. I will no. I mean, I'm not making those. I mean, even if that's true, I don't care that that's your own view. But other people, like Muslim by Choice, the YouTuber, do you know him? He was saying that too. So
no. These are defense mechanisms, bro. These are and here's again, Yahya Snow and Muslim by Choice are awesome, beautiful human beings. I wish nothing but the best for them. Really good human beings. I wish them success and happiness. I consider them. I haven't hung out with them, but I would hang out with them. They're awesome. But they have to protect their community. And I get it all the time, bro, that people tell you that you never were Muslim or you were Ahmadi. It's a defense mechanism. They know I was Sunni, right? They know I defended, Khatam al-Nubuwah, right? But it's a defense mechanism because it hurts. It hurts to hear that somebody left your religion. And that's the thing. Unfortunately, my place is not to hurt anybody. I don't want people to leave Islam. That's not what I'm in this for. Listen, these are serious conversations, bro. This is a battle of ideas, and there are bad ideas in the world. And that's why you said that you're a liberal Muslim. Yahya Snow and Muslim by Choice, they're fans of Shabir Ali, who I consider a saintly person. All three of them are awesome. You guys are the people, and you guys need to stand up more and more. And you guys, I'm not sure about you, but Yahya Snow and Muslim by Choice constantly release videos. But they're constantly standing up for the true Islam that they believe in and condemning ISIS and all this other stuff. But the thing is, like, there needs to be a more visible, protest against fundamentalism in the Muslim community.
Oh, okay. Then it goes back to culture. Like you're a Hindu because your ethnicity or race is from India or Pakistan or India, because Pakistani is same people. So my question is, like, if you were raised, let's say you were white or you were black or Arab or whatever, would you still be a Hindu, or would you remain, atheist after you left Islam? Let's just say you're a different race.
Well, that's a good question. I didn't take my ancestry DNA test until this year, right? Or was it late 2016? I don't remember. So before, when I left Islam and when I started studying Hinduism and Buddhism, as far as I knew, I was probably mixed between Persian, Arab, and Indian. That's what I had assumed, right? Because my last name is Qureshi. And I assumed that until I took the ancestry DNA test. So I didn't really know. And our features are a little bit different than, say, South Indians and stuff like that. And so I really didn't know. I took the ancestry DNA and found out. Now, no, so those weren't the reasons why I got into Hinduism and Buddhism. Reasons why I got into Hinduism and Buddhism was because while I was studying psychology and working in the field of mental health, I discovered meditation and mindfulness and started doing scientific research on this. Then I started practicing it. I started taking different courses. I went on retreats. I started visiting different teachers, both Hindu and Buddhist. And I was interested in the therapeutic value of what they were teaching because my career is in psychology, right? In mental health and behavioral health and counseling and that kind of stuff, or it at least was back then. And so, yeah, Hinduism and Buddhism, I was thoroughly interested in meditation, mindfulness, and yoga. And that's where it all started. So it was not ethnic or racial. And it still isn't today, because I love America. I am a patriotic American, just like you. I love this country. You know what I mean? I don't agree with the current political regime that's in office, but that
you don't agree with Trump and all that.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, that's funny because I've lost friends because they support Trump, but it's to each their own. But no, I don't support Trump either. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that you brought up with ancestry and race and ethnicity and stuff like that, because I knew from way back that Indians and Pakistanis, they have no relation to the Arabs. Arabs and Indians and Pakistanis, they're genetically, culturally, linguistically, they're two completely different people. And I knew that from way back then. That's why, I brought up your race and your ethnicity back in.
There was some speculation because the entire Mughal Empire that came and invaded us, the Mughal Empire were Persians and Turks who came and invaded us and forced Islam upon us in Punjab, right? and that they intimidated us with like jizya tax, and Aurangzeb, was really vigorous in trying to convert India to Islam. One of the few situations where Islam was actually spread by intimidation was in India, particularly by Aurangzeb and these Mughals. And so so if we have some of this Turkish Persian ancestry, possibly from the Mughals, so then there was that chance, and then we have Sayyids and Qureshis and Hashmis and stuff like that who claimed lineage to the Prophet of Islam. Even Nabil Qureshi wrote in his book that based on his last name, he believes that he is a descendant of the tribe of Quraysh. And I thought the same thing too.
That's false though. There's no blood in India and Pakistan. I am like certain of it.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. But,
and it's interesting because I saw a video where Nabil Qureshi was claiming that his family has relationships to not the Prophet, but Umar bin Khattab, whole Arab blood in those areas. So, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, when Muslims say that from ancestry, Arab blood in them and stuff like that, what are your thoughts on that?
When Muslims claim Arab ancestry, you said?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, let me clarify that I don't think that Islam just spread in India because of the Mughal invasion. It didn't just spread in India because of Aurangzeb by force. I do agree that India is a massive subcontinent. There are various parts of India that were not affected by the Mughal Empire. In a matter of fact, a ton of Indians did convert because of proselytization in Bengal and in other areas. And so not all of India was converted because of jizya tax and intimidation by Aurangzeb. But I do want to say that at least my ancestors, the Punjabis, that they were. A lot of them were. So that being said, I didn't want to make it seem that all Muslims in India were converted by force. So hopefully that's clear. Now, as far as why Muslims claim Arab ancestry, I think that a lot of people might have like this inferiority complex of being Indian or having a superiority complex and thinking that they're different by being Arab. So there's some type of pride in being related to the Prophet of Islam or the tribe that he belonged to. So I think it's like for personal egoic type of reasons, racial pride or something like that.
Oh, okay, so you think Muslims want to fit in, so they just make up their own ancestry, saying because I have no Arab blood in me, and I'm proud of that. Like I'm not proud. You know what I mean? Like I know who I am. I know where I come from, and I'm not related to anybody from Lebanon or Palestine or Yemen or whatever. But there are Muslims who say that. So my question is that do you think that they say that because they want to belong? They want to, they want to belong with certain people, so they'll start doing, things different from their own culture and stuff like that, just to fit in.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, that is the case to some degree. I mean, here's the thing. I don't want to stereotype everybody. We don't want to stereotype everybody and generalize to that degree. Everybody's different and unique and that kind of thing. But for sure, I think that element is very true. I think a lot of non-Arabs try to be Arab, act like Arabs, throw on Arabic accents, adopt the Arabic culture, worship Arabs, and stuff like that. But, not everybody does.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, another question was that, about like, you gave reasons for leaving Islam on a Christian TV show. And it's being used as propaganda by Christian critics of Islam. So do you recant some of the things you said in that interview? Who was it with? I forgot the name of that person.
Rashid. It was with Brother Rashid.
So do you take back some of the things you said in that interview, or do you still hold on to those views?
I mean, I've listened to that interview several times. I think the majority of it was just talking about psychology and my mind and what I was studying and how I understood psychologically some of the religious tensions that were there. So all of that I definitely don't disagree with, right? All of that was very important information, I think I articulated it well until the very end of the interview. I said some things that are recanted already, and I stick by my, by taking them back. Islam is not a dangerous religion. I said that. I do not believe that. I think that there are people who make interpretations of Islam, and the reasons why they make those interpretations are because of socioeconomic, geopolitical situations, tribal and cultural situations. There's many different factors that go into how and why a person can have a dangerous theology. And it's because, for example, if you read the Old Testament, if you read some of the verses in the Old Testament, and I've heard Christian scholars straight up admit this, like Christian scholars admit this. I think Jay Smith was one of them, that the Old Testament is actually far more extreme than the Quran. Have you heard that before, at the Cham?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you have to look at the context and behind all those, the reasoning behind that. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right. So Jay Smith was admitted. I think it was Jay Smith, but I've heard others say it too, that the Old Testament is actually far more extreme than the Quran and Islam. But we don't have Jews, carrying out a lot of these different things in the Old Testament. So yeah. I don't know. I think that it depends on the situation in the world right now, with Islamophobia being as intense as it is. Muslims feel that they are being targeted. They feel Muslims feel it. They feel hated, right? I feel hated, and I'm not even Muslim. You know what I mean? I was talking to Introverted Smiles about that. Get out of my country. Get out of my country. Get out of my country. That kind of stuff. Like, okay, clearly, clearly there are some issues here, and I do not, under any circumstances, want to contribute to that. I do not want to see family members being pushed down at the grocery store for being Muslim. I don't want to contribute to Islamophobia. It's going to be bad karma for me if I do contribute to it. And so, but that doesn't mean that we cannot criticize Islam, right? So this is an important point. Like, we should be able to debate. We should be able to have critical analysis. We should be able to say that these are moral issues that we have. Please explain it to us. So that kind of thing you cannot take away.
Oh, okay. So do you think you think Muslims are very protective, and they don't want to, talk about controversial issues regarding women and stuff like that? Do you think Muslims are very protective of other Muslims? That's another question I wanted to ask you.
That's a psychological and sociological thing, bro. If you study sociology, people are protective of their own group, right? Okay. People are protective of their own group. That's not exclusive to Islam. That's just human beings being the way that they are. They favor confirmation bias. They favor those that belong to their own group, and stuff like that. I've been trying, through my dharmic practice, my Hindu practice, I've been trying to transcend that as much as I humanly can, and just see the entire human species as my family, as the Veda says, Vaisudeva Kutumbakam, that the whole world is a family. And so I'm trying to transcend that in my own mind. But, do I support Hindus? Absolutely. Am I going to do everything to support the Hindu community and the Buddhist community and the Sikh, the Dharmic community? I'll do everything that I can, but I want to support human beings in general. But yeah, we all favor those who we agree with or are from the same tribe, naturally.
Oh, okay, yeah, because it's actually interesting because I've had some doubts over the years and stuff like that, but like I can't tell anybody those doubts because and then it would cause like serious issues. So I was just wondering about, like, do you still have Muslim friends, and after you left Islam?
Of course. My thing about, let me say this about doubts, bro. Human beings, when we go through suffering and stress, that's when we start to, these types of thoughts begin to surface in our mind because of our pain. The emotions do have a lot to do with apostasy, right? As we said before, or conversion or deconversion. When people become Christian, or when people become Muslim, they do it for emotional reasons. They're going through something and they're seeking God. So my thing is you can't, for me personally, everybody has their own journey, everybody has their own perceptions. But as far as God is concerned, I have this subjective gnosis that God is real, and it's difficult for me to deny that subjective experience. So, what I would say for you in terms of doubts is just continuously, connect with God more than trying to think about this logically, more than trying to prove something. Like, try to actually experience God, experience life, and understand what life or God is communicating to you. What lessons are you learning in life? Everybody's learning lessons constantly. People, the stress and suffering that you're going through, the drama and the trauma that you're going through, that is God speaking to you personally. And, it's up to you to be able to perceive that, appreciate it, learn from it, grow from it.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, it is, it's hard being Muslim in America. I think you would agree with that. And ever since Trump got in office, it's even worse with the whole political atmosphere and stuff like that. Like, we're not in the Obama days anymore.
Mm.
We're in the Trump days, and the Trump days are, he wants to force immigrants out and stuff like that. So, are you affected by the new political atmosphere in 2017? Are you affected by, the whole Trump thing and,
I mean, I've had this conversation with Republicans, right? When it comes to Republicans, I can appreciate conservative values. Definitely capitalism is important, right? Capitalism is important. Fiscal conservatism, has a place. Fiscal conservatism has a place, and it should be considered. Social conservatism and moral conservatism, I understand it. I'm willing to debate those issues. So it's not about the Republican Party itself that I have problems with. It's the character and the individual and the rhetoric and the behavior and the history of the individual that we're talking about, the president, that I find objectionable. And I'll be honest with you, yeah, I was traumatized. I'm not Muslim. I was traumatized when he won. I'm not gonna lie. I was sad. I was depressed for a few days. Granted that if Hillary got in, I would probably have been sad too. I would have been relieved that Donald isn't in, but Hillary was just, if possibly even worse. So after after a few days, what I said was, everything happens for a reason. God puts everything into play.
So are you a libertarian?
It would have been worse if we had Hillary. Maybe it would have been worse if we had Hillary. Only God.
So are you a libertarian where you think that just everybody should just take responsibility for themselves?
No,
government should.
I'm independent. I'm open to libertarian and Republican ideas. I'm open to. I'm progressive in a lot of my values, so I'm open to Democratic. I'm open to different candidates. Like, for example, in New York, when Michael Bloomberg, flirted with possibly running, I was interested in that. I was interested in what Michael Bloomberg would propose, and he's very independent, right? He has some conservative values, he has some progressive values, and that's the type of thinking that I like. I mentioned in the Introverted Smiles interview that I followed Bill O'Reilly for a very long time in his book Culture Wars, that pits the progressives against the progressives against the American traditionalists. I mean, it's such a black and white book, bro. Like, why do you have to be progressive or conservative or completely? Like, why can't, like Chris Rock said, I'm conservative about some things and I'm liberal about some things, right? He used some curse words in that I won't use. But it's this black and white thinking that I don't get. I don't get black and white thinking when it comes to religion, and I don't get black and white thinking when it comes to politics and morality. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
So would you agree that it's culture? People are Christian because of culture. People are Muslim because of culture. Would you go back to the cultural thing, because you brought up an interesting thing about progressive and, black and white and stuff like that? And I'm just thinking,
Yeah, but here's the thing, cultural. Yeah, for most people, it has to do with cultural inheritance, right? For most people, it has to do with cultural inheritance. that ultimately doesn't matter in the bigger picture. You know, you can look at it if it's true or not logically and scientifically. You can look at it from the perspective of, is it helping me and making me a better person? You know what I mean? So even if you inherit religion like Muslims and Christians do, for sure, they inherit this culture, and it's not a good reason to be Muslim or Christian, you know, in terms of truth. But yeah, I do think that, yeah, a lot of it is cultural inheritance, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if we didn't have tradition, the morality, would become a major issue. And if morality is a major issue, that leads to mental health crises. And that's what I think is going to happen. When liberals take over, right? The statistics show that when the baby boomers die, the millennials take over. All of the statistics, the research, the scientific research shows that millennials are mostly liberal. So for example, they did a map based on how millennials in America voted, right? This is a future generation that's going to take over. Bro, the entire map was blue. The entire country was blue, right? And so, but here's the thing, even though it becomes blue, what I believe is that the liberals are going to mess it all up with moral issues, thinking that it's all okay. Then there's going to be mental health crises all over the place, addictions and trauma and behavioral patterns that result out of the immorality that we're going to see. And then a new wave of conservatism, a future generation, a new wave of conservatism is going to come about that's going to challenge some of these moral issues. So that's the way I'm kind of imagining that it's going to happen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, it is interesting because over the years, you know, I've changed, you've changed, we've evolved perspectives. You know, I haven't left Islam, but then, you know, I saw that, you know, Muslims are, you know, they're changing, they're adapting, but I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, because, you know, you have Muslims who stay in the conservative realm, Muslims who just, you know, are just Muslim by namesake. They don't really follow the 5 pillars or you know, whatnot and stuff like that. So my question is, like, do you think that, like, Islam in America, is it going to get more conservative or less conservative? Is there going to be a cultural clash? Like, you know, what are your thoughts on Muslims in America?
Yeah, and again,
do you have any advice?
And we'll wrap up with this because I actually have to go teach in an hour.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, I think, you know, I think the future of Islam in America, I think as the generations continue, you know, there's going to be less generations that are immigrants and more generations that are born and raised. So as a result of education, exposure to diversity, the Muslims in America and in the West and in Europe and in other, you know, Western countries, that they're going to be more open-minded and liberal, right? I also think with the rise of New Age spirituality in the West, that Hinduism and Buddhism are on the rise in the West. That's just, I don't think that that's my bias. I think we're actually seeing that. Not Hinduism, Buddhism specifically, but at least New Age spirituality. But there's a lot of Hinduism, Buddhism too. But in terms of the future of Islam in America, yeah, no, I think generationally, they're going to be more open-minded. But because globalization is happening, we're becoming more global. The future generations of other countries are going to be so interconnected with America and the rest of the world that we're going to begin to have a global culture. And a lot of people fear that. A lot of traditionalists feel that. I don't know if that's going to happen for certain, but based on the trends and the trends that we see, that we're headed towards a global culture.
Oh, okay. Final question: Marvel or DC?
Marvel, only because I was a big, only because don't get me wrong, you know, I like DC too. I remember having that vivid imagination about Marvel characters when I was a kid.
Oh, so you didn't see Batman vs Superman?
Versus, yeah, definitely.
You saw that?
No, I mean, like I said, I love DC. I mean, in terms of movies or comics, or, you know, it depends.
Yeah. Did you see this version?
Yeah, it was a bit ago though.
Oh, okay. What'd you think? Did you like it or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was, I mean, it was okay. You know what I mean? So I personally like it better when it's just the individual character rather than all these other superheroes. You know, just tell the Batman story, the Superman story. I mean, I've enjoyed those a lot more than I have, you know, with some of the integrated movies. But I thought that movie was pretty good, pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Wonder Woman, you know, where they ruined that with the trailer. So
I'm more of a DC guy, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. So thank you so much, Farhan, for joining us. And yeah, we should do this more regularly. What do you think?
for sure, Itisham, you know, it is refreshing to talk to a Muslim who practices and is completely liberal, is completely open-minded, listens to music, goes to Wendy's, watches Batman and Superman. You know, there are normal Muslims out here, and people need to know that. So I appreciate you. So assalamu
Okay.
alaikum, assalamu alaikum, namaskar, and hope to see you soon.
Have a good one.
You too.